Our entire table.
Do you have people actually?
So Jabber. Sorry.
Oh, no, we have no Jabber. Because Commons.
That's great. Thank God we had a bunch of technical lines at the table.
Probably made it worse, honestly.
Two different servers.
That's different.
Oh, no. Stephen, you said you could do Jabber.
Yeah, not presented.
Huh?
Well, I'm not with it.
Somewhere I think lost.
Okay, so Dave, maybe while he's not presenting for that, would you help with the Jabber?
I don't have a Java client, but I can watch VDEC go. That's I would experience.
Oh, let me just keep an eye, because right now, there's only one person in Medeco, and that's Stephen.
Dave Christian is from Java, so.
When I left, I lost all my.
Well, and Pano sometimes joins too. Yeah.
Sounds like a great thing.
I'll tell you this, but my impact goals is for a relatively short amount of time, so I'll take the next time.
Yeah, so Roman, just use whatever works best for you.
Oh.
This is good.
Because I know you want to bring new stuff up. And our AD is not that. So we just make sure we put it in the notes. I appreciate you giving
It
it.
turns out that they give us lessons.
That way, we don't have to break them and then have to go back. Do you have the slides with the note well? From-
Yeah.
Yes.
Joins and then.
This one?
Because we should get started.
Yes. Are you gonna go through the notes well and everything? Or after you, I follow you, as you wish.
I'm finding the way.
Okay. Okay. So could you open the mic? Then I will just.
So do you want me to do the note well and go through the agenda?
After that, I can take over. Well, and I can do. You can do.
Okay. And then you do that and, okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. One more day to go. Okay, technically 2 days because we're just starting the first session on Thursday. So just in case, welcome to the MILE working group. Just letting you know, we are going to talk about MILE here. The note, well, I'm not going to read it to you, but hopefully you're well aware. We just have to go through the process, going through the participation in IPR. And then for the agenda today, we pretty much have the working group items that we want to get updates on. And if there's any new topics, we've got some time. We've got a short slot, and all the authors said they only needed a few minutes to provide the updates. So if we're lucky, we may let you go early. How's that? So anybody have objections to the agenda or anything to add to it? Going once, going twice? Brett? It is called agenda bashing. You had your chance. You're now done. Okay, we're moving on.
So here's the volunteers. Thank you for being note taker and subscribe. Chris, Roman, and Stefan, thank you very much for the help. So here is our workspace. As you know, we still have 3 drafts working. First one is the JSON IETF. The second one is the CSAT Rory. Third one is XMPP grade. All of them will be addressed here today. And I would like to discuss a bit about milestone. We are largely behind the schedule, so we have to set up the milestone. For the XMPP grade and Rory CSAT extension and JSON IETF, we have to define the milestone. When should we have a work group last call for XMPP grade first?
Okay, I'm now speaking as an individual, Nancy Kim Widget. So yes, I was bad. I was remiss in getting the updates within a month. So the updates are posted, and the question is getting reviews. So I'm trying to remember at the last session, I know Adam and Bill, you guys had volunteered to review the draft. We can reach out to David Cridland if we can get a couple of other volunteers. The question would be when we can get feedback. So given that you guys are here, is it reasonable for you guys to update the draft, provide, and then give feedback? Go ahead.
Adam Montville, update the draft or comment?
No, comment on the
Okay,
draft,
thank you.
sorry.
Yeah, totally. And I have some questions that we could ask now, or I'm happy to circle around after.
Okay, well, I've got 5 minutes,
Yes,
and we can
see
spend a
this.
little bit more time when we go through the draft.
Yep, perfect.
And then, so you actually have to shepherd the draft.
Okay, I'm sure.
So-
I can do that.
So, we'll have to figure out, based on when we get the comments, put some time for me to react and update the draft. And then we need to post a question to the group, whether the group believes the draft is ready for last call. And then I would add, one more working group session to push it through the ISG. So
Yes.
that would be my
So
recommendation.
is it okay to write like this? We try to have a working last call by IETF 103 so that we can initiate, so that we can post the draft to the IESC in the next meeting?
I think that's doable, but it depends on how much time you will need to review. You need more time? You're okay with the dates? Yes, okay. IETF 103 is November. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So how about the Rory CSAT extension?
Can I delay that conversation until my presentation at the end of the thing? Thanks.
Thank you.
No,
Uh,
no, that was a joke.
Yeah, for the JSON IO Day, I hope to have a working last call before the next meeting, but we still have to wait for the completion of the CDDL spec that is discussing that working group. So if it's okay, we can move forward. Next agenda is about the review of the errata. We got 4 errata in this 3 months. If you take a look at the web page, this is the errata. So this is the errata of 7970. First one is about the errata of the type. So there are, in this errata, the hex bin should be array or not, what discussed. You can read it later. But anyway, basically, all the errata was confirmed by Roman already. Roman is the original editor of the RFC 1970. So all the errata is valid. So I hope you can take a look at later for this. The first one is about the data type of the hex bin. The second errata is about, second errata is about hex bin, sorry. First errata is about the explanation of the main body. You can take a look at it. It's just editorial, that's my understanding. The third one is, this is the indicator ID for alternative indicator ID. It used to be indicator ID, it used to be indicator ID reference or like that, but the errata says indicator ID is the right one, correct one. But anyway, you can again take a look at the errata later. This is the correct one. And we also have another 2 editorial errata. Again, you can take a look at the web page. I don't think we have any objection for that, but just to share the situation. So if it's okay, we can move on to next agenda.
Wait, so one question, Take. Will you be able to put a draft that documents the errata, or do we need to have somebody else document it?
Thank you. That was my question. I was about to ask the same question.
Yeah.
Are
So
you
I'm
thinking about
sure-
a document or BIS or
Yeah,
whatever?
typically we put another RFC draft.
But the errata is not so huge, so do we have to do that?
Yes, we do. Oh, I should let the AD speak. Sorry.
I think eventually you should. I mean, there is no
Yeah.
hard rule about that you need to do, like, deal with it right away. I mean, it depends on
It's not.
how problematic it is. Do you have willing editors? And
Might I suggest, actually teeing off what you said, I'd say to wait a little bit. I think maybe we might find something in the IODEF JSON kind of work as we're kind of advancing that. I don't know, maybe we'll find something, and if we do, then we can roll that up into one kind of update.
Wait. Procedural question. The JSON draft is about the JSON instantiation. The errata that's shown here is more general, and I don't know that we can just refer it to the JSON, but that's just me.
So you said, yeah.
What I meant more to say is that we're looking really, really hard at the data model that got published in IODEF v2, where we're finding kind of this errata as part of the
Oh.
JSON kind of migration. And I'm wondering, as we get more and more eyes kind of looking at that data model, we're finding kind of this errata through the process of constructing the JSON draft.
So you're
And-
saying there may be more.
And perhaps there might be
Yeah.
one more, and I see
So-
no penalty in waiting maybe a
Right.
little bit longer,
Okay,
just in case something surfaces, just to save us perhaps the trouble.
okay. My preference as the chair is to begin to document it. So I'd like to see it either tracked somewhere. To me, the best way to track it is to have a draft.
I think that this is very reasonable attitude, and you have, if you have willing editors or editor.
Yeah, so
that's
my
fine.
next question is anybody willing to be an editor for this?
I'm willing to clean up the mess I made.
Thank you, Roman. So noted. Okay.
So the next agenda item is XMPP draft. So could you go ahead, please?
I didn't prepare any slides because the updates were small, so I can either put the RFC diff up or I can just speak to it. So in the last session, the feedback that I received was that it was difficult to understand what was mandatory to implement. So we added a paragraph in the main XMPP section to say, if you want to be compliant with XMPP grid, you have to implement the mandatory to implement descriptions that are in the base XMPP drafts, and I referenced the two drafts there. And then, Adam, I think it was you and Bill had also commented on the operational and management aspects of it. And after long discussions with my co-author, we debated and said that those things were really not in scope, but it was fair to actually provide some, I'll say, descriptive but not normative language to how you might go about doing this. And so we actually inserted a new section for that. The third question that came up was, the draft is about how we can use the IODEF as a topic that can be pub-subbed, if you will, through XMPP. And again, I had the discussion with my co-author, and as it turns out, so it was a question of, do we create an IANA registry? As it turns out, there's already a registry for the XMPP topics in xmpp.org, which again, we noted so in the draft. But if you really feel that we need some liaison or something, then I was going to reach out to Alexi and say, is there a way to just do a reference, a more formal reference for how you do that process. But
Yeah, if you want to send me a specific question, I can either relay it to ZEP Foundation and,
Okay.
ask them. But I think because some people are sort of participating in both there and
Right.
here, I think it's well understood. We
Well,
can
that's
figure
what
out the
Peter-
reference. I'm
right,
sure that,
Peter said we should, because he does both.
yeah,
He updated the draft to how he felt it should be sufficient.
yeah, okay.
So,
Yeah, we can take it offline. I'm happy to
Okay.
help with this. Yeah.
all right, thanks.
Adam. Wow, Adam Montfort again.
Do a little
So,
dance.
yeah, right. Yeah, so the two things that were changed are,
Yeah.
pretty good, I think, for Mile. And my interest is obviously more on the second side, or our interest.
Okay,
It's more on the second side. So I have specific questions about the first bullet in section 10, that new section.
Yep.
About operational concerns, which really speaks to, hey, before you set this up, I think it was basically something like providers and consumers need to agree on common nodes, right? Or whatever the terminology is, common
Yeah, I
XMPP
forget
endpoints
it
and all
was-
that. So
yeah.
from a SACM perspective, like I really want to standardize the semantics behind what those topics are.
Yep.
And
So-
all that. So
right. So for SACM,
mhm.
SACM needs to agree. So Hank and I started mapping an information model to a data model. So basically in SACM, what we did here in Mile was, in Mile, we already had the topic, which is IODEF.
Right.
So we need to do the same thing in SACM. And so again, we're now speaking about SACM.
Right.
We would go and register that topic in xmpp.org.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. So let's talk about it offline because
Okay.
like the comments we have at this point are pretty minimal.
Yeah, more than happy to help with that. So, I think that's it. So if and I'll reach out to Dave Cridlin to make sure that we can provide feedback there. And so then, Take, you can post a question to the group whether the group believes we're ready for last call, right? That's it. See, 5 minutes. Thanks. Do you want me to?
So next, let me talk about our draft. It's about JSON bindings. So next, please. So in the previous meeting, we agreed to use CDDL rather than JSON schema. JSON schema had a problem of the draft itself. It will not fly anywhere. We have to wait. So, oh, sorry, I was too tall. So, yeah, now I can. Thank you. So in the previous meeting, we had a discussion whether we should keep using JSON schema or not. The answer was no. We should not use JSON schema because JSON schema is not going to be RFC pretty soon. So the discussion result was we should try to use CDDL. CDDL is expected to be RFC pretty soon. I think so too. So the change in these 3 months is to use CDDL.
Yes, Alexei Malenkov. Fortunately, unfortunately, all the JSON schema-related things are sort of in my domain as it happens. CDDL in CBOR working group. My advice is, because the whole area is a bit of a mess and there are like 2 or 3 competing proposals, they cater for different things. Pick the one that works for you, and we can make it work. All right? So my point is, if you think CDDL is better for you, absolutely go and do it. Don't switch just for the sake of, switching it unless you believe it's going to help you. All right?
Thank you very much. So this was my first time to use CDDL. CDDL was much easier to define the type. So I believe CD is much better. So next slide, please. So this is, again, so we define we use CDDL, and JSON schema is now moved to the appendix. We don't have to delete it. We just kept it in the appendix, but if necessary, we can delete it. So basically, we chose CDDL. And my plan is we do not have to wait for the CDDL to be RFC. We can issue working group last call before CDDL become an RFC, but we still have to wait anyway because of publication. The next one, please.
Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, this is the errata stuff. We had an errata, so we have to, sorry.
Can I ask a quick question? So the purpose in using CDDL, is that for verification of the data?
Initially, yes, but now, no. Now I think we want to define CDDL as well, because we have a we have to describe IODF in CBOR as well now.
Okay, yeah, because I'm all for using some of these new cool, stuff, but there's no tooling yet for CDDL, so it makes it really like.
Yeah.
There are some.
I am using the.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're partly right, I guess. I'm using the tool provided by Carson. Carson have mentioned that in Appendix F of the draft, he enlisted the tool made by Ruby. That's useful, even though it's not perfect. It's okay.
Frank Xia, Huawei, just a question for clarification. So you mean you in this version you will use CDDL? So that means finally the CBOR is your format to do the message.
I want to do both.
Both JSON and
yes,
CBOR.
it doesn't produce any workload for me.
Okay. So
if there are any reason to choose only one, that's fine. But at this moment, I don't see any reason to choose only one.
okay.
Dave Waltermeyer. Yeah, the reason for using CDDL is you get basically both CBOR and JSON for free because the CDDL can support both models. That's
Thank
also
you.
one of the reasons why not to use JSON schema, which is limited specifically to JSON.
So next one, please. So only one question or discussion point is bulk observable list. Maybe I should discuss it Roman directory, but let me just write it here. In RFC 7970, bulk observable is a string. But if I write it like this, it's more like an array. So whether we should keep it as a text or array is a choice. I wonder we can use the array. That's easier. If there's no objection.
I think an array is a better idea.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Next time.
And way forward, yeah, we still have to work on CDDL a bit. After that, we will publish the next version. After that, we would like to ask you to review. That's the end of the work, I guess. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? No? Okay. Caesar?
Okay, this is Stephen Banghart. I'm going to be talking about current Rolly document status here in Mile, and I'm probably going to bleed over into any other business a little bit as well. So next slide. In case you were not aware, the Rolly core draft was published. That was before the last IETF, I think. That's RFC 8322. So that all went very, very well. Next slide. So we're still working on the Rolly discovery draft that we presented the 0.0 version of last IETF. We have a working prototype test implementation internally, testing our DNSSD work. So we're going to take the lessons that we've learned from that and actually start doing the specification work around getting that down onto paper and really kind of deciding on things like resource names, service names, all that kind of stuff. So with any luck, we'll have a 0.1 version before the next IETF that includes some more technical details. Next slide, please. So I did not post an update to Rolly CSERT. It's still the 00 that it was last IETF. However, I do have an update, and that's not just an excuse I made up. I actually do have an update. However, there have been many new audiences that have become interested in the work that we're doing with Rolly. In audiences at different organizations, at different SDOs, groups that are not familiar with a lot of the work that we're doing here. And they have expressed that they have a desire to have an entry point into this Rolly work, something that they can read that is familiar to them and that provides value add to the work that they do. With that said, I think the best way to address that use case is to split the Rolly CSERT document into two. A document that just addresses the IODEF use case, and we can really focus on the IODEF data format. And then one document that focuses on the STIX format from the OASIS working group. The text for each of those is largely complete at this point. They're both in the CSERT draft already. So that draft already has a STIX section in it. This proposal is really just to split it into a separate document to make socializing and sharing this draft a little bit easier and to provide some better prose at the front to really make everything flow better. Next slide, please. So this draft would be out of the charter of MILE. As we showed at the beginning, that table that we had, XMPP grid, Rolly, JSON IODEF, those are kind of the last things on the charter. However, I think there is enough interest in doing this Rolly extension work to push for a recharter, small recharter, not to completely change the purpose of this group, but to make sure that we have a place in the charter to cover the last few Rolly extensions that we're working on, to get it done, to get it all wrapped up, and to kind of get everything out the door. And I think in order to accomplish that, we need a little bit more time in the working group, and I think that's going to require a recharter. So it's my proposal to do that. Do I have a next slide? I forget if I have a next slide. No, yeah, go back one. No, not yet. I would pose a question to the chairs here. This kind of pushes into any other business, and I've left the rest of my slides because these are also new things that we would like to do. And I want to talk about that after we have a brief recharter discussion, if that works for the chairs.
Yeah, I mean, the current charter really speaks to just the IODEF and the IODEF transport. So I do think we would have to change the charter.
Agree.
Right? That it's no longer just about IODEF. We're now including another data model, if you will.
Or just
Right.
generic
And-
incident exchange, right?
Well, I don't want to make it generic because then we may be getting other formats coming in.
Okay.
Right. But I mean, that's the opinion as the chair. But would like to hear, others comment on whether this group should continue, whether there's interest, and
Okay.
how we move forward.
Okay, any thoughts on recharter?
I have one
Okay.
personal comment.
Take, yeah.
I support to extend it to the sticks, but on the other hand, I want to ask you whether do we have to specific for the sticks or we can extend it to the general threat intelligence data. Currently
Right.
in the world, people are working on the threat intelligence not only for the sticks or not only for the IOD. People are working on threat intelligence.
Right. So that was the question I just asked, Take? Right. Yeah, no, so the concern that I have is there other, and I mean, it's a personal concern. It's just more to the longevity of the charter of how, but it's really up to the group, right? Do we first, is there enough interest? Second, is the interest just for sticks, or do we make it more general to any other incident? So Taki as an individual has expressed the broader.
Okay, yeah, and Taki, I think from a personal perspective, I kind of lean towards that as well, just because there are a lot of people that care about that. Okay,
Yeah,
Brett?
that's fine.
Brett Jordan. I would support this if it pleased the chairs to allow us to do that and the ADs to allow us to do that. I think that I can speak somewhat authoritatively on part of this matter. So it would be nice if there was an entry point into Rolly for Stix content. And the reason for that is Rolly and its counterpart in the Stix world, Taxi, are very, very similar. And I would hope at some point in the future they could actually converge. And so having a means by which Stix content could be delivered by Rolly would be a nice thing, especially for people in this, organization or this group, or people that follow the IETF more closely that are looking to implement Rolly, but are looking to do more of the threat intelligence stuff that comes out of, say, Stix. It would be nice. So I would support that. So.
Okay, so Brett, just to restate, you are in support of, at minimum, the Stix, if not broader. You're okay with doing the broader.
I'm okay with doing
And-
broader.
Yeah. So the only caution I'm going to throw is I would not put taxi in the charter.
No, I'm not
It-
suggesting that at
yeah.
all.
Okay.
I would just, seeing how I do work on those in full disclosure, and so I am an editor on Stix and an author on Taxi, so I do know those intimately. So
Okay.
as I do begin to work on Rolly,
Mhm.
it would be nice if there was entry points that you could wrap Stix content into it.
Okay. So since you are affiliated with both, the other thing that we would have to put in the charter would be something attuned to the liaison and as to who has, I guess, the rights. And I'm presuming there's no IP encumbered with Stix.
So I don't think we would run into any problems with IP.
That's not the question. That's not the question I asked.
So there is, Stix is not just a free, there's IP around it.
So that may be an issue.
We are going to make sure that that's all taken care of, given that we're just making
Who
references
is
out.
we?
I.
So all of that needs to be made very clear.
Agreed.
So that's one. The second one is what we in the IETF are allowed to do with Stix. Is it that we just take it and we're just putting the transport around it with the discovery mechanisms? Or do we intend and are we allowed to make modifications and extensions? to
We don't,
Stix?
I don't, as part of this rechartering effort, have any intention of actually making any modification, extensions, or anything to Stix.
You
I would
don't.
I would make sure that it's in, or it's my personal opinion that it should not be in the charter to do that kind of thing.
So this is all part of how we craft the language in the charter.
Yes, we need to be deliberate when we write the charter. Absolutely.
Yeah, my opinion would be that it would be just referenced. Like, if you want to include Stix content, this is how you do it, but not that we are going to try to.
So Chris, I'm hoping you're
So-
capturing all this in the notes.
The important
thanks.
99. Roman?
So Stephen, can you help clarify for me what exactly we would recharter? Maybe this is some of the rechartering kind of finesse. So we are talking about rechartering to create a constellation of extension drafts to Rolly, and each draft covers a particular type of threat intel data we want to share?
I intend it more to be, so the catalyst for this was wanting to include Rolly Stix. On my next slide, there is 2 other drafts that would be part of this constellation, but that don't involve this is just some Rolly extensions, right? So Rolly JSON, for example, is something that the community has expressed interest in, and that Brett and I are co-authoring and still working on, and we've gotten interest from that, I think, the last 2 IETFs. And I think there could probably be a debate if Rolly JSON is part of the current charter, but I think there was interest in it, right? So it's not going to be, personally, my plan for drafts to do here, right, is these, the IODEF document and the Stix document, right? And I think that there's interest in this group in recharting to support those things. So does that answer your question? I mean, I don't think that the recharter should include, well, it's up to the group.
Okay, so
Personally,
let me restate what I think you said, which may be what Roman was asking, which is your intent is really just to show the mapping of ROLI, not just with IODEF, but potentially other incident formats like sticks.
Right. I mean, so in a sense, are we going to enumerate the specific targets? We are going to work on this, this, and this, or are we saying we will carry not anything, to your concern,
Correct.
but a specific family of things? So
Right.
as we think about
So-
milestones related to
Right.
what we
So-
ultimately do with the charter,
so
let's
what-
lay that out.
Right. So what I have heard so far, and as the chair, the rechartering would be ROLI as the transport mechanism for different incident formats. We started with IODEF, so the charter is very much about IODEF today. So what I've heard so far is we're going to update the charter to include ROLI as a transport and discovery mechanism that could include other incident formats like sticks. And what I heard from others is they'd like to be able to consider other formats beyond sticks.
and I think this is as you said, Roman, a charter finesse thing. We want to tightly scope this. We don't want to let it get out of hand.
I don't want, which is why I mentioned I don't want to include taxi because that's yet
I know,
another
absolutely. Yeah,
transport
this is-
and that would open the
Yes,
charter
yeah, no,
up way
absolutely.
too much.
This is absolutely as tightly scoped as absolutely possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dave Waltermeyer.
You can-
So I chair IPSec-ME. We do a lot of extension work there. And what we've done in that charter is explicitly enumerate the individual work items that we're addressing as extensions. And that's been really helpful to kind of keep the effort, constrained to just those drafts that, that we're working on. And it also gives us a way to sort of manage the work on a cyclical, basis as we start to wind down that work. If there's additional extensions to do, then we simply just recharter to add those additional extensions to the list.
Thanks, that's a fair point.
I think that would
Yeah.
work well here.
Well, which is why I asked the first question. Is it just sticks? And I heard from two other individuals, it may not just be sticks.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion. on that.
I'm perfectly fine being very prescriptive and tight in the actual drafts, right? But we are consensus driven, so I would like to get the opinion before we put proposed text to the charter update. So thanks.
Kathleen Moriarty, nobody anymore.
Oh, come on. You missed my, you,
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
See,
I've been told I'm bouncier this
Kathleen, you
week
missed my
and all
earlier
sorts of
comment
comments.
because I was Karen on Tuesday and today I said, I could be Kathleen. I was like, no, I can't fill those shoes.
Yes, you could. And she could too. And so I think extensibility would be good to make this more useful, to allow for formats to be specific. I agree with Nancy. I think trying to combine multiple transports is a scary thought
Yeah.
and a very bad one because it could result in just lots of problems.
Yes.
But minimally for sticks and maybe depending on how you do it as an extension mechanism for other formats as they arise. Do we have examples of explicit other formats?
No, I mean, we have,
Well, are you asking about different formats in general or different
like
incident
CVE.
formats?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, all right, so under that whole heading, I think it's fine to allow them, right? In
Yeah.
the original intent of all the work we did, going back to inch allowed for other formats.
and that's what I'm trying to, so thanks,
Yeah.
Kathleen. I'm just trying to get a sense of, we can be black and white sticks only, but what I'm hearing from the group is no,
Make it
we want to
useful.
leave some room.
Make it useful, have a
Yep.
solid transport that people can use, and then it has a chance to be used widely.
Yeah. Actually usable. Sorry.
Yes.
That was a comment as an individual.
So,
Too late.
so Roman, and just to follow up my series of questions, yeah, I'm generally supportive of carrying different types of data formats.
Okay.
and not so supportive of talking about more transports.
Yeah, thank you.
Follow up, it would be great if we, back to this idea of kind of extension mechanisms, that if we made the extension drafts, we create as slim as possible, and we put all the hooks that we need in the Rolly draft itself, the core draft, architecturally.
Yeah,
I think we have.
yeah, I think you'll find that that's the case, yes. Hank?
Yeah, I think this can only build on what just Roman said. So do you have the base Rolly stuff that is effectively, you call transport, I think. Then you have formats in there. JSON will be a new format or whatever encoding. And then you have semantics in there you want to transport. And are you mandating that every semantic has to support every encoding, or can they choose? And so, because if I see Rolly JSON, I'm yay, and then I'm doing vulnerabilities, and I'm nay because it's not JSON. So you have to somehow have a hierarchy here. You already established a hierarchy. You have to document it.
I've documented. That's a really, really good comment, actually. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's-
good, he missed that comment. Move on. Okay, so I think now as we're contemplating different encodings in Rolly, the group should contemplate a mandatory to implement. Because right now, if you're saying multiple, this is to address Hank's comment. If we now come in, are we forcing sticks to support XML and JSON and CBOR?
So no, the way that Rolly works is that it just provides a link to the piece of content. The content can be in any encoding, any format. The encoding and format of Rolly has no implications for the encoding or format of the content involved. Additionally, this Rolly JSON work is a binding, and it is a way of representing your view into Rolly with a different response type, right? So it's inherently an extension right off the bat. I don't think we're going to have any problems with interacting with the different formats here. Hank's question was good. I know what you mean, because the vulnerability extensions, they need to also support JSON, obviously, as we're working on this extension. They will.
Okay. Also, I think as you're using HTTP at some version, you can request in the GET or whatever you use a specific encoding.
Yep.
And can even request a set of them.
Yes.
And so you will always know if this is going to work using the transport. I'm using the word term transport now because you use it. And but with respect to data models, I mean, yes, that's saying CVE may be reference. So you have to now have another problem because you don't know which format to expect. Because request vulnerabilities really don't, they will be in JSON. You still don't know how to process them.
So I think we should take this offline. I'll walk you through some of the properties that we use in Rolly to address that.
Okay, sure.
Somehow I think that needs to be captured in the draft too, but.
All of that will be captured in the Rolly JSON draft as well.
Okay. Okay, so I guess at this point, let me ask the question this way. Does anybody object to the rechartering to allow for Rolly accepting other formats beyond IODEF?
No, it's just.
No, I'm just asking for an objection. Going once, going twice. See, this makes it easier. Okay, good. So we will take that to the mail group and get confirmation. And we will come up with proposed rechartering text. And since this is my first time, I will ask counsel from Alexi for next steps.
So when you say we come up, you guys are going to come up with a, or do you mean the working group?
Well, I mean, we can talk offline, but
Some
Royal-
subset of you will come up with a new text that the
Right.
working group agrees on. Send it to the mailing list, discuss quickly.
Exactly.
Give me the text, I'll push the buttons and data tracker too.
Okay,
Right.
perfect. Okay, great.
So it's the royal we.
Okay.
But all of this needs to be confirmed in the mail group.
Yep, we'll confirm it and then we can talk offline about it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I guess I will very, very, very quickly talk about the things that the future work for Rolly, right? So the Rolly JSON work, obviously, that we've been talking about. We've been working on a 0.0 draft. This is co-authored between Brett and I, and we fully intend to have that 0.0 draft published and ready for people to look at least as a preliminary version for Bangkok. Then the vulnerability draft is more or less ready at this point, and I'll have that submitted very shortly. I just didn't want to submit it until we had this conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, part of the rechartering, we probably need to put preliminary milestones.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, we can
talk offline.
represent all this in milestones.
Okay.
Okay. So that is all I have, I think, as long as I don't have another slide. I always surprise myself with new slides sometimes. No, nothing? All right, there we go. We're good.
Was it-
All right, thank you, everyone.
See, we finished kind of on time, but early from our slot. So does anybody have any other business relating to Mile?
Just a very small nit. So
Yeah.
I just approved one of the milestones you added for the document you just discussed, which was saying November 2017.
Yes.
Can chairs put a new date on it?
Oh, it was 2018.
Okay.
So-
And in general, if you just can do a pass and don't spend too much working group time, but update your milestones so that
Well,
I have
so-
an idea when you want to do stuff.
Okay, so what I've done with Ben on TEEP is we just coordinate on email once the group agrees, and you help me update.
Yeah. I mean, you can do it yourself on data tracker, or you just tell me what you want. That's
Oh,
either
I
way is
couldn't
fine.
do it in TEEP. Ben had to approve it.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
I still need to approve it, but
Yeah.
if you just put the better dates, which
okay,
are not
so
in
instead of,
2017.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
we'll update it to more precise times. Thanks. Okay. Any other topics, discussions relating to Mile? What? Oh, you'd be surprised.
How about the Rolly extension deadline for working platform? You said you want to discuss later.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so along with this discussion we just had, I'll move forward with splitting the CCERT extension into 2 documents. I'll have those posted both absolutely before Bangkok, way before that. So we should probably discuss them at Bangkok and decide if a last call is appropriate at that time. So, depending on what the group decides, last call after.
Well, so you're going to update the CCERT extension draft.
I'm going to split it into 2.
Right. So I think that we probably are not going to be ready to do working group last call.
Agree. I just want to talk
Until-
about it then.
Yeah, so I would put the working group last call to April 2019.
Okay.
So my formula is give the working group one face-to-face so that we can discuss. After that, you get to update,
Yeah.
right? So that gives us a November. After that, you get to update, and then we pose the question at the next face-to-face, and then I give you a month.
Yep.
Which is why I'm putting it a month after the next face-to-face.
Yep, it sounds perfect to me.
Right?
Okay.
So, Alexi, those are the dates. So, so we can post the slides or email them to you? We're good, Stephen.
Yeah, you can always beat your own milestones. This hardly
Yeah.
ever happens, but that you will get brownie points for this.
Ooh,
I'll bring you some sweets or something.
okay. The challenge is on.
That I'm recording. The other conversation I ignored.
Okay, third last call for discussion or order of business. I better call 1, 2, 3. Okay, enjoy the free time. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. So Taki, feel free to speak up because I don't think.
You just cannot. I sometimes cannot say or get everything.
So I hope that's okay.
It's everything okay, I guess. So I just have to input the change in the milestones to the data.
So I tried and I couldn't edit the data tracker. But this was for team. So I just emailed them to Ben, our area, so we can, so try and update the data tracker.
It was possible before, so I will try.
Oh, okay. Maybe you can show me because I tried doing it. Oh, maybe it was because it was locked because we were meeting. So I tried doing it last week and I couldn't edit.
Last week was a tricky week.
Yeah. And so Ben just did it for us.